Remember, federalism has three kinds of delegated powers. All right? Express power means that they're what?
Listed or strict interpretation.
Okay, it's strict interpretation, but they are listed in the Constitution, all right? Implied powers are powers that are what? Suggested, and you're going to take what? A loose interpretation, all right? Now, an inherent power, okay, and this one was the new one. Inherent power is what, Bailey? Since you were hollering about this yesterday.
No, I wasn't. The powers of the national government. Oh, has you for the
Okay. The powers the national government has because national government. What that means is, all right, not all governments in the world has express powers. Not all have a constitution. Not all may have implied powers. But all governments in the world, okay, any national government in the world, they all have inherent powers. All right, foreign policy, things like that. They all have foreign policies. Okay, prohibited powers are powers that are what?
Denied.
All right, good. They're powers that are denied. What is a bill of attainder?
Declares a specified person or group guilty and punishes them without trial.
Okay, declares a specified person or group guilty and punishes them without a trial.
What would that be used?
If I came in and, well, remember we talked about making the Ku Klux Klan illegal? Okay, you can't make the Klan illegal.
You can make their actions.
You can make their actions illegal, but I can't come in and say, yeah, it's now illegal for the Ku Klux Klan. Because that's, it starts, remember I keep talking about the legal term slippery slope, because where are you going to start? All right, or I can't come in and say, you're illegal. We're going to keep you out of the country.
Can't you, in a way, do that with this recording?
Do what, deporting?
Yeah, but that's because they're here illegally.
They're here illegally. Okay? And you gotta remember, as an illegal, okay, as an illegal, you have some basic rights, but you don't have full rights. And most people that don't have full rights are here. Citizens. And so yeah, they can deport illegals. Now if you're here in this country legally, such as on a student visa or a work visa or those, they can't come in and say, okay, we're going to kick you out of here. Unless, and again, it's always unless. Let's say all of a sudden we go to war against that country. Then we can, basically tell those people to leave the country. All right. That's what happened, let's say, after World War II when we went to war against Japan. We told all the Japanese citizens to leave the country. Now, what we did with the bill of attainder too, though, is that we threw Japanese Americans into relocation camps, and that has been deemed okay. You went too far there, but you can during state or emergencies. during emergencies, you can suspend certain rights. Remember, Abraham Lincoln suspended which one quite a bit.
Right. We're at the speech.
No.
No, it's
Yeah. Which one did Lincoln do during the Civil War? Suspension of habeas corpus. Remember, because that was deemed a national emergency. He threw people in jail without any charges being filed. And yeah, it did, you're right, it did take away freedom of press and freedom of religion too. Okay, in other words, suspension of habeas corpus means you have to do what?
Present the person before the court.
Present the person before the court. Okay, passing ex post facto.
After the fact.
Okay, after the fact. And here again, with ex post facto, remember your main clues. What's ex mean? Not. Post.
After.
Okay, and fact.
Fact.
Or facto, fact. Okay, so not after the fact. All right, that's your Latin lesson.
Thank you.
And that's your clues there. Because these are all common words we use today. All right. What is corruption of blood?
Punishing the family of a guilty party because they are related.
Okay, punishing the family of a guilty party because they're related.
Have they ever actually done
No, because that was one of the things that they threw in, because Europe used to do, the royalties and stuff in Europe did that all the time. And that was one of the things they said, no, we're not going to do. Okay?
that? But it's ever happened before.
No. It
It's
hasn't.
unconstitutional.
It's unconstitutional. The only times You know, a good example was, the example was there was a spy family where dad had been spying for a number of years for the Soviet Union, and he got, you know, what he eventually did was he retired from the Navy. I can't think of the guy's name right now, but he retired from the Navy. Well, his son joined the Navy, and so what he did was he recruited his son to start spying for him, and even an uncle was spying for the Soviet Union too. Well, all three of them eventually got caught because they were selling, what was it, the naval message codes and things like this. Now, in that case, yeah, all three members, but that's because all three had committed the crime. The son isn't going to get thrown in because dad was a spy. The only thing that can happen, possibly, is, let's say, if the son was in the coding room, the radio room and stuff like that, and dad had been arrested for spying, they would probably investigate the son and stuff like this, but he'd probably lose his security clearance. In other words, he'd probably be removed and given a different assignment. But you got to remember too, the military operates on a different set of laws than civilian courts do. Okay, but the son could probably be moved into the home of dad. In this case, it was dad, son, and uncle. They were both caught. All right. Now, with state powers are called what? Reserved powers. The catch, though, is with reserved powers, they're what? No. The catch with state powers is that they're what?
No, they're not listed.
Okay, good. They are not listed. So because they're not listed, who had to come in and list them? Okay. In this case, they came up with 6 categories by the Supreme Court. Okay. You should know 4 of those. You should know 4 of those. Everybody got it? All right. Concurrent powers, easily they're what? They're shared. An example is taxation. All right? Now, federal responsibility towards the states. First off, they guarantee the states what?
Republican form of government.
Okay, a Republican form of government. All right? What does it mean to provide for the common defense? They protect the states from forces outside. Okay? The ensure domestic tranquility means that they protect what? From violence within. Okay? Common defense, yeah, think military and stuff, that's in case somebody invades us. Domestic always means what? Inside, or the domestic means home. Okay? And maybe that would be, you know, if you not sure, just above domestic, right home.
Is that where they say domestic violence in your spouse? Yeah.
Yeah, when your spouse beats you, that's why they call it domestic violence, because it happens in the home. You know, or what was it there for a while, some housewives were calling themselves domestic engineers, meaning they were housewives. Okay? But yeah, domestic violence means it takes place within the home. All right? Now, the catch is, okay, for them to send troops, they have to be what?
Requested by the state.
Okay, requested by the state legislatures. When would they not, or when would they send troops without permission? Okay, to enforce federal law. Okay, without permission to enforce federal law. Okay.
And that's the century.
Yeah, to enforce federal law. Remember, that's like Little Rock when they ordered desegregation, and like Little Rock, Arkansas, those places didn't. Said we're not going to follow it, and they went and sent the National Guard in to enforce it, to take those kids to school.
Wasn't that the little one?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. Also, it guarantees an equal representation in the Senate, which is also known as the what in your last chapter? The entrenched clause. Okay. States have to respect the boundaries of each state. Oh, did Mr. Navy go to the public? Okay, everybody have it? David, you go ahead. All right. Now, providing for the general welfare, the government will do that through what?
Pay them from the money or
Okay, they will do it in the form of money or land grants. Okay? The catch is that a lot of times these grants can have what attached to them? Okay, that strings can be attached. All right? What's a matching fund? Okay, government will pay half if the states pay the other half. Okay. Your clue there is what?
matching.
Matching. Whereas categorical, it's what? For a specific purpose, okay? Your clue there is category. Okay? Your clue there is category. And a block is what?
Given to be distributed.
Okay, it's given to be distributed. Okay? In other words, the government just hands you a block and you ain't gonna happen.
And you have to distribute it.
And you can distribute it any way you want.
You
can
get a block.
No. Okay? What's revenue sharing? Okay, good. Portion of the federal income tax is returned. All right. Revenue, IRS, Internal Revenue Service. Okay. Where now the state responsibility is they have to maintain a what?
Militia.
They have to maintain a militia.
Do we have to know all of these?
I'm going to say yeah, just be on the safe side. Everybody have it? Okay. Now, who handles elections? Okay, states are responsible for handling elections. Okay? The states will draw the district lines for the House, but the districts must be what?
Equal.
Okay, the districts must be equal because the federal government wants to prevent what? Gerrymandering, which is the unequal drawing of district lines. Okay? Now, why is there a limitation on the separation of states? Okay, good. It's from a cooperation among states. So full faith and credit means they have to accept what? Okay, they must accept each other's laws, but it only applies to what type of law? Okay, it only applies to civil, not criminal. Okay, it only applies to civil. Everybody got it? All right. Extradition is basically what? Okay. Turning over criminals if they fled the state, but they have to be asked for by who?
The state.
By the governor of the requesting state. Okay. Okay. Privileges and immunities.
Unreasonable.
Okay. States cannot discriminate unreasonably. Now that's the key there. Okay. Holden's got it. This is the key here. They can't discriminate unreasonably. In other words, could they stop you from going to college? No. In that state. They can discriminate against you reasonably by making you pay what? Out-of-state tuition, right? Or hunting licenses, out-of-state hunting licenses are more expensive. That is discrimination reasonably. Teacher's license would be another one. But could a state keep me from teaching something? No. Because that's unreasonable discrimination. All right? So under this, this means that you must be given full protection of the law. We good? That's all. Yes, sir. Yeah.